Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Dayspring Discussions. I'm your host Sean McGahee, and this is a show where we talk about movies, TV, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. If you geek out about it, we're going to talk about it. You can listen to Dayspring Discussions on iTunes, YouTube, Podomatic, Patreon, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, wherever, guys. While you're there, like, rate, review, subscribe, then head on over to the Facebook group and Twitter account and join in the discussion. Well, everyone, it is another time for Dayspring Discussions Book Reports, Star Wars editions, which means I am joined today by the senator from Naboo herself, Miss Lisa Locke McGahee.
Hello.
All right, guys, so Lisa has been going through the Star Wars canon novels chronologically, okay? And now we are at to the point where she has just reread Queen's Shadow by E.K. Johnston. Lisa, tell us a little bit about this book. Where does it take place in the timeline, and who's it about? What's it about?
This book is about Padme. I'm Queen Amidala. It basically starts right at the end of her reign as Queen of Naboo. So, it's basically about 4 years after Episode 1. It basically is her. It's basically this starts out like with her transition from queen to deciding to become the senator, and then it kind of goes through her first. I think it's basically her first year, essentially, as a senator. So it kind of just shows how she made that transition from queen to senator, how her life changed, how she had to how she got involved and was able to kind of get her way into the Senate. It shows her the sort of her relationship with Bail Organa, with Mon Mothma. Shows kind of how goes into a little bit between her and the Emperor, Palpatine. He wasn't the Emperor then, but
Chancellor at this time.
The Chancellor, right? Like, so it kind of shows like how they start kind of butting heads on things, but I mean, it's essentially that's what it is. It's about her getting settled in the Senate. But the biggest highlight of it is her and her handmaiden. So they go into a lot of backstory and detail about who her handmaidens are, how they're chosen, what they're capable of. They're not just ladies in waiting that are there to, mend her dresses and fix her hair. Like, they have, they talk about back on Naboo, the stringent application process it was to even be chosen to be a handmaiden, and then the training that they went through, and what all they actually do to help her. They're not just there, to make her look pretty and make sure her luggage gets where it needs to get. They have a much larger role in what she does, aside from serving as decoys if needed. In addition to talking about her handmaidens, they also go into the transition, because when she moves from queen to senator, her handmaidens change. The handmaidens that she had when she was queen, the ones that we see in Phantom Menace, those are different handmaidens. She gets kind of a new crop of handmaidens in when she goes to be a senator, for several reasons. Number one, those other handmaidens have been her handmaidens for a long time, and they maybe are in some ways ready to move on with their lives, where the new handmaidens, her role as a senator is very different than her role as a queen, and the handmaidens have a different purpose, and they have to kind of... So instead of having the old handmaidens try to shift what they're used to doing, they just got new handmaidens so they could kind of find ones that are going to fit better in her new role. You learn a lot about the new handmaidens and her new security team and all that. Then, there's also the big relationship in this between her and Sabe, who is kind of like her favorite handmaiden, I guess you could say, from the first ones. Sabe was her primary decoy during the Phantom Menace, and is kind of her best friend. So, Sabe, it kind of shows how she starts to use Sabe now, not use her, I mean, they're friends. Sabe chooses to do this, but how Sabe is serving her still, even though she's not a handmaiden anymore, by kind of helping with other things. And we see a little bit of a crossover of this. I mean, wasn't it one of the Vader things recently where Sabe turned up?
Yes. The current Vader comic right now that takes place after The Empire Strikes Back, when Vader is learning more about what happened to Padme. The very end of the first issue, he finds a woman that looks exactly like Padme, and he's like, freaking out. He's like, oh my God, she's still alive. and you come to find out it's not Padme, it's Sabe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that you kind of see at the end of the very end of the book, it kind of jumps forward to Padme's funeral, and you see Sabe there, basically trying to figure out what happened because she's completely caught off guard. She's like, Padme wouldn't go out like this. This isn't right. Something happened. There's more to the story. And basically her kind of vowing that she will figure out what happened and she will avenge, Padme and whatever.
Yeah, and kind of what you learn in the Vader comic is that Sabe had every intention of doing that, but what happened was the Empire rose up, Bail Organa actually, roped her into the rebellion, and she got caught up in the war where she kind of took a back seat to finding out what happened to Padme, and now after the events of, like I said, Empire Strikes Back, she's kind of trying to fulfill that mission, runs into Vader, and her and Vader are actually teaming up to find out what the full story was on Padme and what happened to her. There's only been 2 issues on that, so I'm interested for the 3rd one. But yes, Sabe was an interesting character in this book that I really like. One thing I found interesting that I think I mentioned this after I got reading the book, is this kind of the first Star Wars, semi-sex scene going on in this one?
Oh, possibly.
Because, I think of, all the other Star Wars books, or all the other, even the movies, it's we never had, a scene where, 2 people are kind of hooking up. And that's where immediately after I read that scene, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is, the first kind of sex scene in Star Wars, almost.
Yeah, probably. It's not really a sex scene. It's like a foreplay scene.
Well, yeah, they start to undress each other.
Yeah, I guess.
But and it cuts off, of course, like any kind of PG-13 movie or something like that.
It's still pretty PG.
Yeah, true. This is a Disney book. This isn't even a Del Rey book. It's a Disney book too.
Right. But yeah, that's an interesting side note.
Exactly. It's where my head went. Okay. Sorry. Okay. But yeah, so that's kind of the layout of the book. Kind of what happens a little bit too. What other kind of details or what kind of scenes maybe stand out for you in the book?
Just some of the relationships that you kind of see forming, especially if you've watched, what most people, the best place in the Star Wars universe to get information about Padme is from the Clone Wars, the animated series. That's where you really get to know Padme. In the movies, I don't even want to get started about how they treat her in the movies, but my opinion on that. So
it's just episode 3, I think.
Really, all of them.
Episode 3, they just throw away all that character work from the first 2 movies in my eyes.
Yeah, well, but even so, they don't really dig deep into her. She's a very superficial character, I think, mostly in the movies. Where the Clone Wars TV show, you really get... You get a deeper sense of who she is, because she's involved in the show a lot more.
Yeah.
So you have a lot more of her getting, finding out how she works, what she's trying to do, who she is in the Senate, that kind of stuff. But this one, in here you see, which parallels back to the Clone Wars, you see how she becomes friends with. I'm having a brain fart about his name.
Bail?
No. The guy, the kid, the one from the banking clan.
Yes, Clovis.
Clovis. Yeah, Rush Clovis. You see how they become acquainted. And even, because, the Clone Wars TV show hints that they had a relationship of some sort. And this one, you kind of see that they could. It's not, they don't have a relationship in this, but you kind of see how, with them both being young and starting the Senate together and trying to find their way, that they would kind of obviously be kind of drawn to each other. So you meet Clovis. You also see kind of from the other side, which you're not really sure about yet, but one of the other senators that she gets to know, who is the senator from Onderon. You kind of see she's doing something kind of shady. You're not really sure what it is, who it is that's manipulating her, but there's someone who's manipulating her behind the scenes who she's scared of. So you kind of can see there the beginnings of, again, you're not really sure who it is, if it's, in the timeline with all, we don't know who it is. Is it Dooku at this point? Is it the
Sidious?
Is it Palpatine?
Is it the Trade Federation? Who knows?
Right, no one really knows who it is, but somebody is kind of behind the scenes starting to pull strings from inside, within the Senate, and no one really, you kind of just get that beginning hint, and you see that in some way the senator from Onderon, I can't remember her name either, is kind of involved in that. But then you also see the alliance already here forming between Bail and Mon Mothma and Padme. So it's got a lot of politics in it, but there's a lot of other stuff too. So it's not super political and that you wouldn't enjoy it if you know, if you don't really like the politics part of the books, but because there's a lot of other stuff too. If you like the character of Padme at all, like, I feel like this really brings a whole new level to Padme and also her handmaidens. You learn so much more. Yeah. You meet the one who ends up dying in
Attack of the
Clones, who is serving, who is being at the time her decoy. I think that was Corday. But yeah, so it's really, I really found this one to be interesting.
Isn't there one point like she does something where she's like send Sabe to like investigate Tatooine or something like that?
Well, yeah, because basically when she decides not to be queen, or when she leaves being queen and she's deciding to be the senator, before she decides to be the senator, really her ultimate goal is to find a way to free slaves. Like, she wants to end slavery. That is her number one mission in her life. And all that kind of lends back to her experience on Tatooine originally when she met Anakin and him being a slave and whatever. So what she does when she decides to be senator, her goal is to see if she can, as a senator, find a way to end slavery in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. But as a side note, she sends Sabe to Tatooine to try to find Shmi to free her.
That's what it was, yeah.
So that's basically Sabe's first task, once she's no longer a handmaiden. And also she's trying to look for ways to free slaves.
Yeah.
As best she can, using money to free them that she has, as opposed to also in the Senate trying to find a way to do that as well, which she doesn't really know how to do. Obviously we know how all this plays out. She never finds a way to do it.
She doesn't find Shmi, right?
No, Sabe can't find Shmi.
Okay. All right. So there's your little taste of what you have in store for Queen's Shadow. Now coming to the actual verdict of it, Lisa. Yay or nay? 2 thumbs up, 1 thumb up, 5 star, 2 stars. What do you got?
I really like this book. It's not my favorite of all the canon books, but I do like it. I think for people who want a little more action, this one's not going to be for you.
Okay, so let's say of the ones you've re-reviewed or we've reviewed on here, Master and Apprentice, Dooku, and then this one, out of 3 books, where would you rank it?
Oh, that's hard. You didn't tell me we were going to do this. I wasn't prepared for this. I don't know.
Think about it.
I think I like it better than Master and Apprentice, but not as much as Dooku.
Okay, so Dooku's your number 1
of these 3 so far,
and then this one, and then Master and Apprentice.
Yeah, but I can't keep doing this every time.
Okay, I'm just trying to get some frame of reference.
Yeah, but it depends on people's opinions. Like I said, I feel like if you're the kind of person that really needs to have some action in your books, this one's not for you. You're not going to like it as much. There's still some interesting stuff, but there's not a lot of action. There's no fight scenes. There's no, it's not like that.
Yeah, it gives you a deeper understanding of Padme's world and exactly how she's able to operate as a queen and now as a senator, to where, again, if you read this book and then watch Attack of the Clones at the beginning, you get an idea of kind of how she is the senator, how she's seen as a senator, and how the handmaidens are working for her,
and also how threatened the rest of the Senate is by her.
Yeah,
but yeah, again, this one doesn't have necessarily a plot. It has a plot, but it's not really an independent plot.
No.
It relies on the other stories that go around it.
Exactly. So, all right, cool. Well, there you go. Star Wars Queen's Shadow. Now, just to let you know, of course, there is one coming out very soon that is kind of a prelude to this one, Queen's Peril, written by E.K. Johnston. Now, this one actually is before... let's see here. It's this is after she wins the election of Naboo. So this is her just starting off as queen. Is what this one's going to be. And that one comes out...
So this one, leads up to the episode...
Yeah, it leads up to episode 1, exactly. So, yeah, so this one comes out in June 2nd, and I believe that's the next Star Wars book to be released. But again, guys, if you read Queen's Shadow and like that, you don't have to wait that much longer for a little bit more of E.K. Johnston and Padme, because it's coming out real soon, and it should be interesting to see how that one goes, too, guys. But what's the next one on your list?
I think the next 2 in chronological order, it kind of was hit or miss which one would be going next. So I think that the one I decided to do next was Dark Disciple, since we've already gotten a little bit with with Ventress, so I figure might as well just carry on and do this one before I forget what the next one is, but
I think the next one's the Rogue One Catalyst.
Right. So yeah, I figured this one kind of fits better since we've already talked about Ventress with Dooku, since this one is also about Ventress.
Yeah. This one was one of my favorites.
Yeah, I really like this.
Based off Clone Wars unused storylines, of course. So that'll be an interesting one. But that's going to be it for us today, guys. Of course, if you've checked out Queen Shadow, fire back on those social media groups or Gmail account. Let us know what you think about it. And if you haven't checked it out, please do so. I'm sure you got the time, like most people. Audiobooks are a good way to get through it very easily. That's it for us, guys. Go out, enjoy your day, and until next time, may the Force be with us all.